Continuing on my ancient DNA matches, we've got Mesolithic II era still, a woman from Spanish Mountains TOR.6, Andalusia, Spain. I match 0.16% with this sample, genetically closer than 80.44% of other genome link users. So this sample is from an early Neolithic female individual unearthed at the El Toro Cave archaeological site located in the Sierra del Torcal caustic mountain range at an elevation of 1,190 meters south of the city of Antequera in Malaga. In Malaga province of Andalusia, Spain. Based on the archaeological context, her remains were dated to be from the 5,280 to 4,780 Cal BCE interval. DNA extraction was performed from her tooth sample. Her mitochondrial DNA haplogroup was identified as T2b3. The T supraclead is suspected to have emerged in the Near East, while the T2b has its highest frequency in Saudi Arabia today. The early Neolithic populations of Andalusia were herding ovicaprids. What? Ovicaprids and cultivating cereals. They made tools and utilities from clay, wood, bone, and leather. They used diverse decoration techniques on their ceramics, such as incising and imprinting. They had a specific treatment of the funerary remains. They buried the deceased person until skeletonization, and after that transferred partial remains to a final resting place. Sample TOR.6 was discovered during systematic archaeological excavations at the Cuevo de El Toro and died as a victim of prehistoric cannibalism. Her remains provide some of the earliest and most vivid evidence of ritualized or aggressive cannibalism in the European early Neolithic period. How she was found. The excavation, her bones were unearthed by an interdisciplinary team of Spanish archaeologists, anthropologists, and paleogeneticists. The location, assemblage B, her remains were recovered from a specific grouping of bones known as assemblage B inside the cave. This section contained a mix of both processed, butchered, and non-manipulated human bones discarded within the domestic living areas of the cave. Family ties and discovery. DNA analysis of the bones in this assemblage revealed that TOR6 was found alongside a close biological relative. She shared an identical mitochondrial DNA lineage and a first-degree genetic link with sample TOR.7, meaning they were either mother and daughter or biological sisters. How she died. Cannibalism. Anthropological analysis of the bones in assemblage B showed clear evidence of human bone manipulation, including perimortem around the time of death, fractures, cutting, skinning, and intentional breaking. The nature of the violence. Researchers have put forward two primary theories for her violent end. Aggressive intergroup violence. She and her relative may have been captured, killed, and consumed by a rival Neolithic community during a desperate conflict over territory or resources. Funerary ritualism. Alternatively, her death and subsequent consumption may have been part of a highly ritualized domestic funerary practice. This theory is strongly supported by the discovery of another individual in the cave, assemblage A, whose skull was carefully carved, boiled, and shaped into a skull cup or drinking vessel. Life for the people of Cuevo de El Toro, including sample TOR6, was defined by a complex settled farming lifestyle, remarkably advanced technology, close cohabitation with livestock, and an undercurrent of intense ritual or intergroup violence. Rather than primitive nomads, they were highly skilled, pioneering early European farmers who actively transformed the rugged Andalusian landscape. Unlike earlier hunter-gatherers, this community used the massive karst cave as a permanent year-round habitation site. The cave was split into distinct functional zones. The human occupants lived crafted tools, prepared food, and gathered in the central areas, while the deeper recesses of the cave were utilized for ritual practices and storage. They practiced cave penning, meaning they actively kept their sheep and goats inside the cave with them during the nights or cold seasons. The air would have been thick with the smell of livestock and wood smoke from the domestic hearths. Archaeological evidence rules out starvation for this community. Isotope analysis of the bones revealed predominantly terrestrial diet that combined sophisticated agriculture with herding. They grew domesticated hulled and naked wheats, barley, lentils, and beans on the lower slopes surrounding the mountain range. Their pastoral economy was heavily reliant on stock breeding, primarily sheep and goats, which provided a steady supply of meat, milk, and hides. They supplemented their farmed foods by gathering wild primary resources, such as acorns from the local forest. The community possessed an intricate understanding of physical materials and manufacturing. They crafted durable ceramic storage jars and cooking vessels, often decorated using the edges of cockle shells. Characteristics of the Mediterranean cordial culture. They used sophisticated techniques to shape local stone into polished axes, adzes, A-D-Z-S, E-S, and flint blades required for deforesting land, harvesting grain, and processing wood. Ritualism, community, and violence. Daily life was deeply entwined with a collective identity and a preoccupation with the supernatural and death. The community erected iconographic and material markers outside the cave, turning the natural terrain into a structured landscape that defined their tribal territory and identity. Life could end abruptly and brutally. The presence of peri-mortem butchery marks on TOR 6 and her relative reveals that they faced extreme violence. Whether they participated in a complex funerary ritual where the dead were consumed to honor them, or fell victim to a brutal territorial raid by a rival community, the processing of human bodies was an integrated aspect of their cultural reality. So, how do we connect here? So mitochondrial haplogroups T2B3 carried by TOR6 and J1C3 connect deeply through a shared maternal ancestor who lived roughly 47,000 years ago. They represent two distinct sister lineages that evolved independently but share the exact same historical path, originating in the Near East, surviving the last glacial maximum, and ultimately driving the European agricultural revolution. Their exact connection can be broken down into their deep ancestry, evolutionary divergence, and shared archaeological history. The deep ancestral link is haplogroup JT. If you trace the maternal lineage of both TOR6 T2B3 and mine J1C3 backward through time, their family trees converge at a crucial mutation block. The shared ancestor, haplogroup JT. Around 47,000 years ago, a woman lived in West Asia who developed a specific set of mutations, labeled by geneticists as haplogroup JT. Every single person today, or in antiquity, who carries a J or a T mtDNA signature descends from this one individual woman in an unbroken maternal line. The divergent, shortly after the lineage split into two major sister branches. One daughter lineage branch became haplogroup T, the other became haplogroup J, and then ours stemmed from there. While they split tens of thousands of years ago, T2B3 and J1C3 share a massive historical reconnection during the Neolithic transition, when the first farmers expanded from Anatolia into Europe, roughly 9,000 to 7,000 years ago. They brought a specific package of maternal DNA. Archaeologists refer to these populations as early European farmers. The Neolithic combo across early European agricultural sites, subclades of T2B and J1C are almost always found together in the same burial complexes. Iberian context in Spain, including the Andalusian region where TOR6 was unearthed. Both parent haplogroups T2b3 and J1C3 were actively present in the local gene pool, making these women as part of the same wave of early Mediterranean pioneers who brought pottery, sheep farming, and crop cultivation to the peninsula. So there was other individuals found at this site, labelled differently. So there was 2 individuals, including TOR6 and her first-degree relative TOR7. There was 2 individuals with the J2B1A mtDNA, 1 individual with T2C1D, 1 individual with K1A1, and 1 individual with K1A2A. While J1C3 belongs to the exact same ancient migration family as the people of El Toro and is frequently discussed alongside them in broader genetic studies of the Mediterranean cardial way culture, the actual genetic breakdown of the ancient DNA recovered from the specific site contains a different set of maternal lineages. Why does J1C3 appear in papers alongside El Toro? The regional comparison. Geneticists use the El Toro sample as a baseline for early European farmer ancestry. They compare them to other Western Mediterranean populations where J1C3 was heavily present during the Neolithic, such as ancient Sardinia or other parts of the Iberian Peninsula. The North African Canary Island connection. Prominent studies by researchers like Dr. Rosa Friegel have used the El Toro genomes to track prehistoric migrations across the Strait of Gibraltar. These papers track how European Neolithic farmer DNA, like the T2 lines found at El Toro, eventually blended with North African lineages, heavily influencing later populations like the indigenous Guanches of the Canary Islands, who did frequently carry the J1C3 haplogroup. But I asked about the J2B1 group. So this J2 fella, it'll be related to King Richard, because he comes up in my profile. But he's a J2. So J2B1A is directly related to J1C3, first cousins on the maternal family tree. Both lineages belong to haplogroup J and descend from the exact same maternal ancestor, a woman who lived in West Asia roughly 45,000 years ago. Wow. The grandparent is JT. Around 47,000 years ago, a foundational mutation created the JT line. The parent haplogroup J, shortly after, a woman inside the JT line developed a new set of mutations that officially began haplogroup J. The sister split. Roughly 32,000 years ago, haplogroup J split into 2 major sister branches, J1 and J2. Because of this split, J1C3 and J2B1A share the vast majority of their deepest maternal DNA mutations, but they carry distinct branch mutations that occurred after their ancient separation. So the test for ancient matches is done autosomally, so it could come from my father or my mother. But looking at the parent line of the mtDNA is what I look for first. And if it's distant, I'm just thinking it's got to be my father's side that's picking it up, or it's just a generic because of my J1C3. I don't know. But they could be picking up with everything if that was the case, and it's not. But to see the J1, I just did a little bit about that because that's a closer lineage. So I don't know why that's not come up. It's weird. It's weird. Let's see what's next on my journey. And we're still in the Mesolithic II. For the next one is German shaman woman, BDB001, Saxony-Anhalt, Germany. 0.16% match and apparently genetically closer to this sample than 65.25% of genome link users.